hosts Brett Stats Norsworthy and Bryant Dacus.
Welcome into Sports Time. Bryant and Brett with you. Landon Schmidt producing. We're Sports Time. We're with you for the next hour and a half because it is a big day as we've got the college football playoffs semifinals getting started later tonight, 6:30, Ole Miss and Miami, but we will have the pregame show starting at 4:30, and Brett Norsworthy is already at the stadium getting ready for that pregame show that will get started in about an hour and a half. Brett, paint the scene for us. What's it like out in Phoenix?
It is not sunny. It was coming a torrential downpour when we got to the stadium, but we had plenty of time because we get here early enough to chalk the field. So we waited out the rainstorm, we got inside, and roof's going to be closed for the national semifinals, the Verbo Fiesta Bowl from the home of the Cardinals, State Farm Stadium. And this is where the John Calipari era at Memphis ended in this arena with the loss to Mizzou and Mike Anderson in 2009.
Yeah, so some not great memories there, I guess, if you were watching or in attendance and a Memphis basketball fan, but could be a good night tonight for the Ole Miss Rebels. I'm curious, though, a torrential downpour in Phoenix, Arizona, is that an omen for the Hurricanes? I don't know. There's got to be some sort of symbolic meaning around that, right?
It's got to be something, doesn't it? I mean, the average rainfall out here is about 6 to 8 inches a year, and I guarantee you it's already rained 1.5 inches, 2 inches today in this general area. But everything is cozy inside and ready for Ole Miss to face the mighty U. And think about all the times, Brian, I've cracked on Miami about being back.
Oh, man.
Well, they're really back if they win tonight, but they're really back when they finally hoist that trophy if they get to the finals. And they will be, if they win tonight, they will play in the finals at their home. And yesterday, I made comment about it. USC has famously played in the Rose Bowl Stadium in the Los Angeles area, and Texas has played in Dallas, but that's not Austin, and the LSU has played in New Orleans. So if Ole Miss is not able to win tonight, Miami will play distinctly at their home on Monday night, January 19th. But that's not the outcome I want, but really ready for our pregame that, as you said, starts at about 4:30 here on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM along the Ole Miss radio network, and everybody very excited to be among the Final Four. But the goal is to be among the Final Two. The goal is to win it all, though.
Yeah. No, it absolutely is, and it really is. It is incredible when you look at Miami and what they have done to get to this point. Like you mentioned, an opportunity, a win tonight. Not only are you playing in the national championship game, you're playing in the national championship game in your home stadium. And I mean, you look back, you go back to that loss against Louisville, certainly the loss at Southern Miss just 2 games later. You were looking up 2 of the last 3 games for Miami were losses. I don't think at that point anybody thought Miami would be in the semifinals, but here they are, and an opportunity to go back home and play in the championship game, and kind of, you could say similar things about Ole Miss. We talked about a lot yesterday, kind of the stories of both these teams, where Miami was kind of those losses that always pop up in November, and then for Ole Miss, your head coach leaves, and how is this team going to respond without him? So I think some really good storylines on both sides of the ball tonight.
It really is chock full of a lot of great storylines, and unlike Ole Miss, Miami, they obviously got in with 2 losses. Ole Miss would not have gotten in with 2 losses, and it was very controversial for Miami to get in with 2. But that Labor Day weekend W over Notre Dame held them in good stead. And Carson Beck, in those 2 losses to Louisville and in overtime against SMU, 6 interceptions, but he has been great with the ball and kind of knew when to hold them and when to fold them in both of these first 2 college football playoff games, to win it at Kyle Field and then to make Julian Sayin look, just very average, make Ohio State look very average. That tells you Miami's peaking at the right time, and for Ole Miss to win on campus against Tulane, and then a week ago tonight to get the win over mighty Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, the SEC champions, the Georgia Bulldogs. So maybe peaking as well at the right time. But somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. We know it could be overtime. It was almost overtime a week ago tonight. I don't think I can I can handle that. But and a lot of me, I've said it all week, a lot of me is still in New Orleans, and I sure hope, I know the coaching staff and the players, they can't be anything like that. They've got to be singularly focused. But for us, I mean, today the replay was on kind of in the team room at the hotel, and it was cheering, like we were still there last week. So, a lot of the fans are really looking back to last week, but a big test in front of Ole Miss tonight with the mighty Hurricanes.
Yeah, it's okay if you are still back in New Orleans. Completely different story if any of the coaches or players are still back in New Orleans. But you talk about
I don't matter.
No, I mean you do matter, but don't say that. But in terms of the actual on the field, it's a different story. But you talk about Carson Beck, and we've said week after week after week, especially here in the playoffs, is if Carson Beck just protects the ball, like you said, those losses with the turnovers, if he just limits those turnovers, then Miami's in a really good spot. You go back and look, over their last 5 games, only 1 interception in that 5-game span. It came all the way back November 29th against Pitt, where he had 3 touchdowns through 1 interception. They got a big win over Pitt on the road. So yeah, I mean it's all about keeping that ball out of the defender's hands, and if he can do that, they're going to put he's going to put Miami in a really good spot, especially with that defense. And that's the biggest thing. We've talked so much this week, late last week after this game was set, of this matchup between Ole Miss and how good that offense has been against Miami and how good that defense is. And tonight, here in just a couple hours, we'll see which side of the ball wins out.
Yeah, I think both teams really want to establish the line of scrimmage and try to impose their will through the run game. Miami, I suspect they're going to just really try to line up and power the football right down Ole Miss's throat if they can, and that keeps Carson Beck in those cozier situations where he's not having to be that 7-step drop guy and fog it around 45 or 50 times. There's just no way they'd win if they have to do that. He has not thrown a ball, even an attempted pass, for more than 15 yards in the 2 wins over the Texas Aggies and Ohio State. So the game plan has really been run the ball, play solid defense, be good in special teams, and have Carson Beck not beat you. Just make the simple check downs and the simple throws, and they've been able to ride it to victory. Only scored 10 points in College Station. I say only 24 against Ohio State's vaunted defense. That really is pretty good. But I just don't think 24 will get you much tonight. For Miami to win this game, I think they've got to get in the low 30s, and that's where I think the game will be. You've got my pick, and y'all are going to do that at 3:45, and there's no shocker who I'm picking. But I just don't think Miami can get into the low 30s scoring. If they do, it has the potential of a rout.
Yeah, no, I think you're definitely right, and it's all credit to that defense. They've been able to only score 10, only score 24 because of how good that defense has been. And what does that defense look like tonight against this Ole Miss offense that has really, really been clicking? And I think you're right. I think it starts with the line of scrimmage. I think both teams are going to try to establish that run game early. Both these teams have shown that they can run the ball extremely well. So, if you like that ground and pound, if you like defensive games, I mean, you could be getting one tonight, or you could get a high-scoring affair. I really don't know how tonight is going to play out with this game. I think it could play out 100 different ways, and I really wouldn't be surprised. I think this is going to be a thrilling matchup. You mentioned we're going to make the picks later. We're going to play it off of 3.5. Miami, a 3.5-point favorite. It is right now Miami a 3-point favorite if you're going to your sports books, but obviously we always add the hook. So we
don't push.
No, we never push. So I'm excited for when we get to our picks. I know what your pick is, Brett, but I'm curious to see where we all stand.
You always can take either side. One thing to keep an eye on: natural grass field. Famously, they roll it in and out and water it and grow it, roll it back in and lay it in for play. Some of those quick spinning, whirling dervish plays that Trinidad Chambliss made so easily on that AstroTurf at the Superdome, better have the right cleats in, or your feet could fly out from under you on some of those tonight on a natural grass field.
Yeah, no, that is a really good point. So it's going to be a little bit different out there, and kind of curious how if that affects either of these teams kind of early, if it takes a little bit to kind of get used to the environment and the different type of playing surface. and things of that nature. So this will be fun to see that kind of feeling out process on both sides. And I mean, biggest game in a while for both sides. I mean, you think even Miami with some of that success they have, it's been a while since they've had this opportunity, and so it's a massive game for them as well.
It has been, but it is clearly, singularly, the biggest game in Ole Miss football history, just like a week ago was. So here we are again for Miami, not as much, but certainly the biggest in a long time. I'm going to leave it with you guys. Y'all take us right up to when the network gives it to Gary Darby and brings me in, and I will visit with y'all for sure tomorrow during First National Bank and Trust Friday football forecast, if not before then.
Good deal. Well, Brett, I appreciate you hopping on with us. Enjoy tonight. I know it's going to be a lot of fun. I guess we'll hear your voice here in about an hour or so.
You got it. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Brett. Brett Norsworthy, nice enough to stop by. Obviously very busy with everything going on around the game
as you would
tonight.
imagine.
As you would imagine. But Landon, Brett and I just talked about it for about 10 minutes. I know we're going to get to picks and talk about it a little bit more at 3:45. But tonight, Miami, Ole Miss. I'm very serious, and we're going to get to our picks later. I won't say who I'm picking. I think I've had the same conversation with 5 or 6 different people today of, hey, what side are you taking tonight? And I think I've given a different answer to...
Well, it's easy.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I can't give a different answer to all of them because there's only 2 answers, but let's say I gave an answer to 6 people. It was split 3 I'm taking Ole Miss, 3 I'm taking Miami. I really don't know how this game plays out. Now, I will say this before getting your thoughts, and I do think this is real, and I'm curious how it plays into tonight's game, and I wish we had more time with Brett to ask him about it, but I think it's a real thing, the fact that Ole Miss, first round played Tulane, second round played Georgia. The thing those 2 teams have in common is, Ole Miss saw both of those teams in the regular season. That by itself, I think, is a factor, but also the fact that there are a couple of coaches that are with LSU, with Ole Miss, trying to kind of play a lot of different roles, going back and forth to different places, and trying, in a week's time, trying to game plan for a brand new team. It's a lot easier to game plan when you already have the scout complete from the regular season. You just tweak it a little bit, and you say, hey, what we did then, we're going to do here, or hey, I mean, obviously you did the same thing you did against Tulane. With Georgia, we lost that game, but we played really well. Let's tweak these things, and now we're going to have a really good game plan. A lot different when you're playing Miami, and so I'm curious, does it look a lot different than the outright success that they had against Tulane and Georgia? So I really don't know what to do with tonight's game.
Well, and to your point, the time frame of preparing for Miami, because with each passing round, you don't know if you're moving on to the next round or not. But I mean, you're going to have guys on the team that are going to be there, that are going to be game planning, that are going to be looking at the other team. But when it comes to like a full team game plan for these opponents, I mean, when you're looking at the difference in time frame for the first round of the playoffs to where we are now, that's a pretty big gap. But now you're looking at last week they played on Thursday. This week they're playing, it's only 7 days for them to get prepped for this team. And so I think that was a lot of what really hurt Ohio State in that game against Miami was, and I was even hearing John talk about this on his show, was the fact that all throughout the year they had not been pressured like they had been against Miami. That Miami defense basically had their way with them, and not knocking Julian Sayin, not taking anything away from him. I believe he finished the most with the best completion percentage in college football. Really good when he's back there and he's got that pocket. But when you came up against Miami, you saw what happens when he didn't have that pocket, when it was collapsing and you had guys in your face that whole time. So it's definitely going to go both ways, and I kind of like how we've got, it's arguably college football's best defense going up against arguably college football's best offense, and it's kind of seeing what edges out, because to me, Julian Sayin is not going to be your scramble guy. He has more pocket passer tendencies, whereas Trinidad, we saw it perfectly against Georgia. He knows how to scramble, keep plays alive, and not just that, but his decision making, where he's putting the ball, his accuracy on the throws looked really, really good. So, like you, I can see this going either way. It's really kind of hard to just sit there and say, well, yeah, they're better here because there's something on the other side of the ball that's exactly going to match them. So, like you, man, I don't know which direction this is going to go. It's very up in the air.
Yeah, I think it can go either way. And the argument of, you got to put together a brand new game plan, same can be said with Miami, obviously.
Absolutely.
But I do think while it's not a bulk or a ton of, or certainly not all of the coaches playing, you do still have a couple of coaches playing a lot of different roles down at LSU, at Ole Miss. It's a weird situation at Ole Miss, but obviously they've been able to get through that the first 2 rounds. So we'll talk a lot more about that throughout the rest of today's shortened show. I did want to just make mention, because we have a short show today, because it will be a lot of talk about the game tonight. The Grizzlies did lose last night, a 117-98 loss against the Sun. Dylan Brooks, have yourself a night, 21 points.
He's been playing really good these past few games.
He's been playing well, and he is. It feels like has found a spot in Phoenix. Obviously, was with the Rockets and did some nice things down in Houston, but feels like has found a good spot with Phoenix. 21 points for him, 7 rebounds, 8 for 22 from the field, 5 for 12 from 3. He did pretty much everything he wanted against the Grizzlies, and I think he even said it. I saw some quotes from him after the game and kind of said, like, yeah, man, I know a lot of the guys on this team. I played with a lot of guys on this team. I know their strengths. I know their weaknesses. I know how to exploit those things. And, I mean, I think Dylan Brooks still has a really good relationship with a lot of guys on this team. We talked about it the other day where he was at that Washington Wizards game with Phoenix in town to play Washington the very next night. He was in attendance for that game and was kind of showing love to some of those guys afterwards. But he's a competitor, and he I'm sure feels some type of way about being dealt by the Grizzlies and wants to put it to him every single time he plays them. But every single starter last night for the Suns in double figures. They had a couple guys, including two other former Grizzlies, Grayson Allen and Jordan Goodwin, both come off the bench and finish with double figures. Grayson Allen, 5 for 10 from 3. For the Grizzlies, we talked about some of those questionable guys last night. It was announced after we were off air. Santi Aldama was able to play last night for the Grizzlies after being listed as questionable. He came off the bench, 7 points, 3 for 8. The leading scorer last night for the Grizzlies, Jaren Jackson Jr., with 19 points. He was 9 for 19 from the field, 0 for 3. So this was a Grizzlies team playing a back-to-back. They looked like a team playing a back-to-back last night against the Suns. Suns just got the better of them. The Grizzlies off tonight. They'll be back in action tomorrow night against the Oklahoma City Thunder. But I need to set up today's show before we get to top and not top story of the day, 3:30. We're switching things around a little bit today. Being a Thursday, it's been a while since we've talked to our Thursday guests, and now with a shortened show, Keith Smith going to join us at 3:30 from Spot Track and the Front Office Show to talk the NBA. A ton to get to with Keith. We'll get his thoughts on the Grizzlies. A lot of different stories out of the NBA, but the biggest one, Trae Young was traded last night. We got that news, I believe on Tuesday. The news started circulating that he was working with his agent and the Hawks to find a trade destination. Then it became clear that his preferred destination was Washington. Last night they put a trade together to send him to Washington for a pair of players. We'll talk a lot about that with Keith Smith at 3:30. 3:45, we will make our Fiesta Bowl picks right now. Miami, a 3.5-point favorite over Ole Miss. We'll make our picks. We'll talk a little bit more about that game at 3:45. 4 o'clock, Pat Smith from Jocks down in Birmingham. He'll join us. We'll talk a lot of college football with him. We'll mainly talk about tonight's semifinal game, tomorrow's semifinal game. We'll also get to a couple of other stories out there in college football, including the story about the quarterback over in Washington, as still more and more information, more and more questions, uncertainty about what's going on out there in Seattle. So we'll get Pat's thoughts on that. We will break with Pat about 4:17, 4:18 or so, and we'll get to Mo's crunch time about 4:18 or so. Then we'll get out of here at 4:30, Ole Miss and Miami pregame show, and that will lead right in to the kickoff at 6:30. But let me remind you, we're in our Family Leisure Studios where family and fun come together. The hot tub and swim spa clearance sales going on right now at Family Leisure. Hot tubs starting at $24.99. Swim spas at $14.99. And in-stock patio furniture now up to 50% off. Hot tub covers starting at $249 with spa steps and cover lifts starting at just $99. Special financing, it's available, and if you mention this ad, receive a free gift with that hot tub purchase. So head out there to Family Leisure, 2120 Witten Road, just north of I-40. Remind you can be a part of today's show. Hit us up, Sissy's Log Cabin listener line, 901-360-8255. Again, that's 901-360-8255. Let us know your prediction for tonight's game. Who do you think wins? Is it Ole Miss? Is it Miami? Again, I really don't know what to do with tonight's game, so would love to get some assistance from the listeners out there. Who you think wins tonight, Miami or Ole Miss? And I should remind you, this first hour brought to you each and every afternoon by our friends over at Lexus of Memphis. Brett tells you each and every afternoon about the fine people at Lexus of Memphis and the beautiful vehicles they have on their lot. Head out there this weekend and check out those beautiful brand new 2026 models, and they've got a great team over there that can answer all your questions and find that perfect fit for you. So we appreciate Lexus of Memphis being a part of the show every afternoon. Let's go ahead and get to top story of the day.
Top story of the day.
Well, my top story of the day, it is the game tonight, the first of the college football playoff semifinals between Miami and Ole Miss. For both these teams, I think a lot of storylines circulating around them. For Ole Miss, obviously we've talked about it a lot more with Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss, taking the job at LSU. Pete Golding not only becoming the next man up for the postseason, but the next permanent head coach, and all the questions surrounding what will it look like with a kind of makeshift coaching staff, with a new head coach. But so far, so good. They go out there, they beat Tulane, they go out there, they beat Georgia. And for me at least, and I know we talked about this, and I kind of went out last night and tried to search, try to ask my friends about it, kind of get a gauge of how people were feeling about tonight's game. And what I found is that a lot of people have a kind of soft spot for this Ole Miss story. They're kind of rooting for Ole Miss. We took it to the text line yesterday. A lot of people that were not Ole Miss fans were saying, we're rooting for Ole Miss to get to the national championship game, to win it all. So I do think they have a lot of support both locally and nationally. But on the other side, this Miami team, I think a lot of storylines surrounding them. How many times have we talked about the U being back and that chase for the U being back? Well, the U is officially back. You're in the college football semifinals, one game away from hosting in your home stadium. I think the storylines for both teams would be wild if they make it to the national championship. I think it sets up a great game tonight. But on the field, we've talked about it a lot. A really, really solid offense in Ole Miss against a really, really solid defense in Miami. What happens? I feel like we and everybody else has said that so much that we're going to get like a weird game where, we got a great defensive performance from Ole Miss, and then a great offensive performance from Miami. But it really feels like this will be a really, really fun game. We just got a text message coming in that said Ole Miss has two elite pass blocking backs in Lacey and Diggs. Couple that with the sure hands of Caden Lee, and the Rebs win 27-26. If we get that final score,
that's incredible.
Thriller of a game. I hope we get something like that.
I hope we do too, but I'm right there with you with my top story. I think with the college football playoffs happening tonight and even continuing into tomorrow with this Fiesta Bowl, I would say for one, it's I think that these teams who are in it right now were a surprise to many that they got past who they did. Ole Miss getting past Georgia, Miami getting past Ohio State, I think is a huge shocker to many, but here we are. And if Miami has proven anything in this playoff run, it's that their defense is for real. The way that Miami completely took over that game against Ohio State is nothing like the Buckeyes had seen all year. Nothing against Julian Sayin, like we said earlier. He's a great QB, but he definitely has more of a pocket passer tendency. And when he has that, and there's not much of a scramble presence to him, whenever he comes up against a great defense like Miami, something that they had not seen ever in their entire year, it's going to cause some problems. Trinidad, on the other hand, we mentioned this right after the game of what we saw with Georgia. It was not just the way that Trinidad was scrambling and making plays come alive. It was the way in which he was making decisions, the accuracy with his passes, just everything that he was doing to make sure this game was completely going the way that Ole Miss drew it up was absolutely great. And like the texter just mentioned, he and Lacey are going to be a great duo anytime that they step on the field. But Miami also has a good QB at the helm, which I think he tends to kind of slip under the radar when you're talking about a lot of these teams. And like you and Brett had mentioned, and I know I've mentioned before, I don't think he's better than Chambliss, but if he can go out there and just protect the football, that puts Miami in the best situation to possibly get a win out of this game. And like we said, it boils down to one of the best defenses going up against one of the best offenses. And if Trinidad can stay alive against Bain and that defense, or vice versa, if Bain can get to Chambliss in the offense, then that's definitely going to be a big swayer in this game. And even tomorrow night with the rematch of a Big Ten rematch with Indiana and Oregon, who Oregon to this point has been playing really well, shut down what it was formerly known as the best team that money could buy in college football with Texas Tech. Their defense absolutely came to shine in that game. And when it comes to Indiana, the only problem was that Alabama opened that game with a pair of sacks against Fernando, but could not keep the pressure up. And then from there on, Fernando Mendoza, who is our Heisman winner, just basically had his way with them, picked them apart through the air, and it was really, really bad to watch if you were an Alabama fan. But both of these games lining up in the semifinals for the college football playoffs should be very interesting to see which way these go.
Yeah.
Not top story of the day.
Well, my not top story of the day, the Tigers have their quarterback. They got the commitment last night, and I think it is a really, really big one. West Florida transfer quarterback Marcus Stokes has committed to Memphis. He's in the middle of his visit, and actually head coach Charles Huff was on with Greg and Eli this morning. It's up on the website on featured audio, so I would tell everybody to go and listen to it. A great interview. He was not able to talk much about Marcus Stokes because Stokes has not officially signed with Memphis. He's still on his visit, so could not really go in depth about him, but kind of talk very vaguely about what kind of quarterback Marcus Stokes is. Now, when I say West Florida, I'm sure a lot of people are like, what in the world is West Florida? Division II school that he went to. Now, this is a kid that was a 4-star recruit out of high school, was committed. I don't know if he was officially signed with Florida or just committed for Florida. Had a video that went around of him rapping along to a song. Said a word in the song that he probably should not have said.
Probably.
And Florida rescinded their scholarship offer to him. He had to go to West Florida, and at West Florida put in a couple of great seasons. Just this season, 3,664 yards, 40 total touchdowns, 30 through the air, 10 with his legs. He was a finalist for the Harlan Hill Trophy, which is the Division II Heisman Trophy, and had a handful of big-time Power 4 offers. So I think a really, really solid get for Memphis, and kind of starts what this offense will look like in the 2026 season. He will, unless something crazy happens, be your starting quarterback in 2026. And now that you have the quarterback, it'll be interesting to see what they put around him at a lot of those position groups and what this offense will look like going into next season.
Yeah, and we know Charles Huff wanted a dual threat, and that's exactly what they got with Marcus right here. My not top story is how the NFL coaching carousel just seems to have no end, and the destinations keep getting bigger for all of these teams, and a lot of big name coaches are on the market. The most recent big fire was Mike McDaniel with the Dolphins, which now adds the teams up to 8 that are looking for their new head coach. And even Tampa Bay today, they did not get rid of their head coach, but man, they cleaned house. They fired their offensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, QB coach, cornerbacks coach, and their defensive line coach today. So a lot of job openings open for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. But for head coaching, there are 8 teams searching, as we just mentioned. The Dolphins, as they just let go of Mike McDaniel. Ravens, as John Harbaugh was just fired. The Raiders fired Pete Carroll after just 1 season. Falcons and Raheem Morris part ways. Browns, after 2 underperforming seasons, let go of Kevin Stefanski. The Titans, who fired Brian Callahan earlier this year. The Giants, who fired Brian Daboll. And the Cardinals, who fired Jonathan Gannon, who, in my opinion, had the worst firing out of them all. Reason being, a day before he was let go, the Cardinals posted happy birthday to Coach Gannon, and then the next day posted that he had been fired. The NFL is a very tough business. The NFL just continues continues to go. And now there are 25% of the league searching for new head coaches. And not to also forget that the Dolphins and Falcons are still looking for general managers as well in the midst of all of this. So there's a lot of speculations, a lot of coaching interviews still to come, with a lot of coaches not being able to interview until the start of next week. So a lot is up in the air right now in the NFL.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of questions out there, and who knows when we'll get clarity on a lot of these jobs. That'll do it for top and not top story of the day. Let's get to our first break, and when we return, we're talking the NBA. Keith Smith, he joins us next.
Add a little fun to your lunch break. Join Johnny Radio for Sports 56 Happy Hour from 11 to 1 every weekday on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Guns, guns, and more guns. Over 700 firearms in stock. Home defense guns, old guns, new guns, used guns, big guns, little guns. Every gun you can think of, Classic Arms has them. All brands like Glock, Sig, Colt, Ruger, Smith & Wesson, Browning, Beretta, Benelli, Remington, Winchester, and more. Guaranteed lowest prices in town. Only gun importer in the Mid-South. Free gun inspections and appraisals and free bore sighting for the upcoming deer season. Shop online at ClassicArmsOfMemphis.com or visit Classic Arms at 1740 Germantown Parkway behind Corky's Barbecue in Cordova.
Here's what sets NST Law apart. They don't just work in Memphis, they ride for Memphis. From school fundraisers to courtroom battles, they show up where it matters. And when someone in this city gets hurt, NST goes toe-to-toe with insurance giants. No fear, no favors. It's not just the law to them, it's loyalty. And if you ever need backup after a crash, NST's got your back. NST is the way to go. Call 683-7000 or check out nstlaw.com.
Napa Cafe celebrates 28 years in 2026.
Hi, I'm Glenda Hastings, owner of Napa Cafe, and I want to thank you for making us part of your dining experiences. If you are a first-time guest or have dined with us countless times, I want to thank you for making us part of your lives. Whether you're celebrating with the crowd or planning a cozy date night on the town, Napa Cafe can provide you an extraordinary evening. We have 5 dining rooms, including our private wine cellar, our Jan's room for 2 guests, and the Eleanor room for parties up to 60. Sit back, relax, and celebrate. Leave the cooking to us. Come see me at Napa Cafe, 5101 Sanderlin Avenue. We're open Wednesday through Saturday for dinner starting at 5 o'clock. We also offer curbside pickup from our full menu. For details on our stay-in, dine-out menu or reservations, visit our website at napacafe.com. We can't wait to serve you.
Come join in and celebrate 28 years of Napa Cafe in 2026. This traffic report is brought to you by Millington Weight Loss. For more information, call 901-436-0272.
Sports 56 traffic.
Good afternoon. No shortage of radar on I-40. Already spotted out there on I-40 just past 269 as that traffic leaves Shelby County headed on out towards Fayette County. As it gets heavier through certain parts of the Midtown area, I-40 over here at Chelsea, it's moving at the moment. I-40 as you come past Danny Thomas on the bridge here, pushing over into West Memphis. A St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital is leading the way the world understands, treats, and defeats childhood cancer. Check out their website at stjude.org. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
Now back to Sports Time on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour is brought to you by Lexus of Memphis. Here are your hosts, Brett Stats Norsworthy and Bryant Dacus.
Welcome back into Sports Time. Brian Landon with you, and we got to talk some NBA. And joining us now to do that, like he does every single Thursday, it's Keith Smith.
Time to talk NBA with Keith Smith from Spot Rack and the Front Office Show, and on Twitter X at Keith Smith NBA. Here's Keith Smith talking basketball with Bryant and Brett.
Keith Smith joins us now to talk the NBA, and a lot to get to circulating the NBA. Keith, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a while since we last chatted with you. I hope you had a good holiday season, but a lot to talk about, and I was excited to talk a lot about Trae Young, kind of what could happen, but now we know what has happened, as last night the Hawks sent Trae Young to the Washington Wizards. In return, they're getting C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert. There was a lot of reporting done, rumor, speculation, actual reporting out there that the two sides were discussing trades draft picks being involved in the trade. It does not look like there are any picks. It's been reported by several different people. No picks involved in this trade. So Trae Young for C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert. What did you make of that trade last night?
Yeah, it was a little surprising that there were no draft picks involved, because there was a sense out there that the Wizards were, in effect, renting out some of their cap space to take on Trae Young's contract. But the fact that they did this without any picks tells us the Wizards wanted Trae Young, the basketball player, not Trae Young, the contract. They were interested in bringing him in and having him play for them. They were going to have $80 million in cap space next summer anyway to fill 3 roster spots. That's not really an easy thing for them to do at this point and where they are. And it was going to be hard for them to get a player of Trae Young's caliber. So they're looking at bringing him in to help them grow and help them kind of become a better team. Not necessarily win a lot more games, but just be more organized, make life easier for their younger players. And then on the Hawks side, it was just time to move on and time to kind of reorient their roster. They played a lot without Trae Young this year. They played well without him at times, and I think they're ready to move forward with Jalen Johnson as the centerpiece, and we'll see what's next with this kind of newfound flexibility that Atlanta has created after this trade.
I like a lot of things that you just said, because it felt like watching this trade play out, not only how fast it played out, but kind of how quick both sides were to come to an agreement, and then seeing Trae Young last night on the bench with the Hawks and the way that he kind of left. It kind of felt like Atlanta got to a point where they had built this roster. Like you mentioned, they played really well for a good span without Trae Young on the court. It feels like a lot of times, not only in the NBA, but just professional sports in general, when you have a situation like this where a player decides they want to get out and go somewhere else, it can get a little ugly. This didn't feel ugly at all. It just felt like everyone was kind of in agreement. You know, this era has come to an end. It's time to move on from Trae Young. Let's figure out the best spot for both us and for you to get this trade done, and let's make it as quick, easy, pain-free as possible.
Yeah, and this is, the sign of the respect Trae Young has for the Hawks have for Trae Young, what it's meant for them over the last 7.5 years together. A lot of it is, hey, we're just in a spot where it is kind of, we're not best together anymore. And you could have argued maybe they could have made it work, but you try to make it work and it doesn't, then that's when the bad feelings start to come up, and that's when things get rough. Or if Trae Young, if they bring him in and it's like, hey, you're just not going to have as big of a role anymore, then all of a sudden he starts to feel lessened, and it just gets ugly. So I think in this situation, this is, both sides coming together. They work together. It sounds like the market was fairly limited, which is not saying a whole lot about Trae Young, just more a lot of teams have point guards. They don't need a point guard right now, and they certainly don't need a point guard on a max contract who's now looking to also get extended or get a new contract and get paid a big number too. So I think we're just in a spot where it was time for those sides to go their separate ways. They were able to find something that worked with the Wizards that also worked for the Hawks, and they got it done.
Well, I want to get back into this trade and kind of both sides of this, but you mentioned Trae Young and kind of what the market was for a point guard. As you know, here in Memphis, the conversations have been, should they not, will they not trade Ja Morant? What does that trade last night and what the Hawks, what the trade was for Trae Young, what does that say for what the market could be for Ja Morant?
Yeah, I think it kind of should be eye-opening for anyone with the Grizzlies or Grizzlies fandom that thought, hey, let's trade Ja Morant and cash in and get all kinds of picks and everything else. These are guys who are viewed somewhat similarly around the league. I think, Ja Morant's a better athlete. He's a more exciting player, but Trae Young's a better playmaker. He's been more reliable on and off the court than Ja Morant has been. And Trae Young makes a little bit more money, but Ja Morant has a lengthier injury history. So we're in a spot where value is probably about the same for those two guys. So I think what we're looking at here is if the Grizzlies decide we want to move John Morant, it might be, slim pickings out there as far as teams, because a lot of the teams that came up they might be interested in acquiring Trae Young or acquiring John Morant. There are teams like Minnesota or Houston, and it's not easy for those teams because they don't have room under their aprons and under their hard caps to make a deal like that happen. It's going to be difficult for them to match salaries. So those teams are just in a spot where it's going to be, all right, it's going to take a little while, for them to kind of figure it out and how to get there because of all of that. So that's where I think if you're the Grizzlies, this is a little more maybe it is, hey, let's take another look at making this work versus just making a trade.
Yeah. Well, going back to the Trae Young deal, I know I saw you tweet out a couple things about it from the Hawks' perspective, and please correct me if I have this wrong, but they cannot move C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert as a package now if they want to make more trades. They can move those guys independently of each other, but not as a package deal. Where do the Hawks go from here? I know there's been talk about trying to be in play for Anthony Davis around the trade deadline. Where do the Hawks go from here, and how do you view this roster now?
Yeah, so to that first part, when you're over the salary cap and you acquire a player, you can't what's called reaggregate. You can't reaggregate that player's salary in another deal, which means combine C.J. McCollum with Luke Kennard and have that be your matching salary. You're just not allowed to do that. That prevents teams from requiring players to simply turn around and trade them again. So if they want to get involved on Anthony Davis, it's probably going to have to be Kristaps Porzingis. Now, the Mavs are not going to want to go back down that road again. They've been there, done that. But they'll involve a third team. Or they'll just waive Porzingis or something where he gets routed out of there and doesn't ever actually return to the Mavericks. And then if you're Dallas, it comes down to Dallas reportedly is, all right, if we're going to do this, it starts with Zachary Risache and or the Pelicans pick that you have. Yeah. And from the Hawks side, they're saying no go on either one of those. They don't want to talk trading either one. And that's going to be where, all right, if you want to get it done, then somebody's going to have to give somewhere. We're 4 weeks from today is the trade deadline. So we're in a spot where it's going to be, all right, who's going to give? Is somebody going to blink? Is something else going to happen with one of these two teams where the Hawks are willing to give more? The Mavs are willing to come down. But right now it's a staring contest. And either side seems very motivated to move off with how they want to put this deal together.
Yeah, well, side note, it's crazy to think that we're only 4 weeks away from the trade deadline, but I guess that's how fast this season has been moving. Okay, so on the other side, the Washington Wizards, young team, a team that has really struggled this year. They bring in Trae Young. I saw a couple reports today that said Trae Young might not even play the rest of the season with Washington because of that injury he's dealing with right now. What do you make of the Wizards side of this trade?
Yeah, I don't buy that he's not going to play. I've been told that injury is more of we were close to a trade injury. Not that it was not real, but it was, hey, there's no reason to potentially make this worse. But I do think the Wizards will be careful at this point with Trae Young. If he's feeling anything, they're going to sit him. They're not, overly worried about winning a handful more games. What they do want to do is see what does it look like with our group of guys who are in their early 20s with Trae Young in his mid to late 20s. How can he help them improve? Can he make the game easier for Alex Sarr and Trey Johnson and Keyshawn George and Bilal Coulibaly? Can he set them up in ways where the game is just they can score easier instead of having to create for themselves? C.J. McCollum was having a really nice year for the Wizards, but C.J. McCollum's not a playmaker for others like Trae Young is. Trae Young is one of the top 2 or 3 passing point guards in the league. He's really good at setting his teammates up for shots. So that's where we're going to see that be what their goal is get him mixed in with their team and feeling good about, all right, we're kind of ready to go and see what this looks like before they have to lock in any kind of long-term type of contract with Trae Young.
Yeah. Well, Keith, you're going to have to forgive me. I'm so used to having longer segments with you. I just looked up and saw what time it was in this shorter segment. But quickly, before we let you go, it's been a while since we talked with you. Your thoughts on what you've seen these last couple of weeks with the Grizzlies, with this Ja Morant injury, and just kind of everything that's been happening with Memphis over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think, we're just kind of, the Grizzlies are right now they're just, win a few, lose a few. They're, they're not playing, awful, but they're when it looks like things are starting to go good, then it feels like something happens. Somebody else goes down. It feels like we're just kind of stuck here where they're going to be down in somewhere, 11th, 12th in the conference. They're starting to get pressed from behind a little with the Mavericks and the Clippers hanging in there and coming up. The Trailblazers they're starting to play a little bit better. I don't think they've lost a game in the last week or so they're starting to move up. But I think it's going to be that group of four. You could almost tell me any two teams make the playoffs. And I think for the Grizzlies and the rest of those guys, it'll come down to how healthy are they and who really wants to get, into the play-in tournament. Or is somebody going to look up and be like, what are we doing? Why are we chasing the play-in tournament? Let's just, be a lottery team, get the ping pong balls, and let's go.
Yeah, they're in a really weird spot right now, and that decision's going to come probably sooner rather than later. But Keith, as always, thanks so much for joining us. It's good to talk with you again. Next week, I believe we'll be back to our regular time at 4 o'clock. But thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you again next week.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Keith. Keith Smith joining us from Spa Track and the Front Office Show. Talk all things NBA, obviously, with that big trade last night, focusing a lot on the Trae Young deal. And I thought it interesting what he said. I mean, I think a lot of people, when talking about should you trade Ja Morant before this trade, were saying, well, his value isn't going to be what it probably could at different times. It's going to be a lot lower. Do you really want to move him at this point? And then you saw last night with that Trae Young deal. I think a lot of people were surprised. Not only was the return C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert, but it was only C.J. McCollum and Corey Kispert. No draft picks involved at all. And there was at one point yesterday evening where it was strongly being reported that the deal was being held up because they were having those conversations of, well, we got to get draft picks in here. Both sides wanted picks, and ultimately neither side got picks. So a very interesting trade there. But we need to get to another break. When we return, we're going to talk more about the Fiesta Bowl, and we will make our picks for Ole Miss and Miami. Right now, we're going to play it off of Miami, a 3.5-point favorite. Currently on the sports books, Miami, a 3-point favorite. We always add that hook. So a little preview and pick for the Fiesta Bowl. That comes your way next on Sports Time.
Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Available locally on your radio dial as well as around the world online at sports56whbq.com. Take us with you everywhere by downloading the Sports 56 app. And at home, just say, Alexa, play Sports 56. Wherever you are, it's easy to stay tuned to Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Step up your wings game at East Coast Wings and Grill. With over 60 wing flavors and 7 heat indexes, do you have what it takes to turn the heat on your wings up to insanity? East Coast Wings and Grill is family friendly with a large variety menu to satisfy the whole bunch. Sign up today for their loyalty program and taste the rewards. For every $1 you spend, you collect a point. Earn 100 points and receive a $5 reward. Next to Lowe's off Highway 64 in Bartlett, come try America's best wings at East Coast Wings and Grill.
Rick's Powder Coating for a beautiful finish every time. Rick's Powder Coating specializes in automotive, ornamental, residential, and industrial coating. With 2 conveyor lines and the largest batch ovens in the Mid-South, Rick's can accommodate all of your powder coating needs. Locally owned and operated since 2002, Rick's Powder Coating will customize a beautiful finish just for you. Drop by or call to see how Rick's Powder Coating can bring color to your life. 901-367-2771 or rickspowdercoating.com.
At Jason's Deli, when you're dining in or picking up curbside, you can expect wholesome food and no surprises, just delicious sandwiches, crisp salads, and quick quality meals made with the freshest ingredients and no artificial trans fats, MSG, high fructose corn syrup, or artificial colors and dyes. Around here, a lot of thought goes into what we put into our food and what we take out of it, because you're not just taking a bite, you're getting a taste of who we are. New items are constantly being created to expand our menu for all tastes and special diets with vegan and gluten-free options available. Convenience and on-time delivery you can count on. It's just a click away at jasonsdeli.com, so whether you need to feed 5 people or 5,000, the team at Jason's Deli, they have the credentials and the commitment to keep you satisfied. Freshness is nearby at Jason's Deli with locations at Ridgeway in the Park Place Center, Poplar and Highland, Germantown Road in Cordova, and on Goodman Road in Olive Branch. Jason's Deli. It's wholesome food and no surprises.
Are you 50 or older? This news is for you. The CDC recommends you get vaccinated against pneumococcal pneumonia. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at risk. People 50 or older are over 6 times more likely to be hospitalized with pneumococcal pneumonia compared to adults 18 to 49. Just one shot can help protect you. Learn more and schedule at vaxassist.com. That's VAXassist.com. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Now back to Sports Time on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour is brought to you by Lexus of Memphis. Here are your hosts, Brett Stats Norsworthy and Bryant Dacus.
Back in Sports Time, Brian Landon with you. No Brett. He was nice enough to join us to start the show, but obviously they are getting ready for the game tonight. He's already out at the stadium, and just a reminder, we will have the full broadcast of tonight's semifinal game. We'll have the pregame show, we'll have the game, we'll have the postgame show, all that action getting started at 4:30 with that pregame show before the 6:30 kickoff. So if you want to tune into that semifinal game, keep it right here on Sports 56. But we got to discuss it a little bit more. We have to make our picks for tonight's game. I think we both said kind of up in the air on this game and how it ultimately plays out for the two teams. I guess we'll start with the picks, and then we can kind of talk about it. I'll just start with Brett's. As you can imagine, Brett's going with Ole Miss.
It's a huge shocker.
Plus 3.5.
Huge shocker from Brett.
Now it's your go, because I don't want to go next.
Yeah. We've been talking about it. You can go either way, but I think when it comes down to it, that Ole Miss just kind of has a little bit more of an edge in this game, and they're coming into the game as underdogs. So I'm siding with Brett. I'm going with the Rebels tonight, plus that 3.5.
Whew. So, both of y'all on Ole Miss. I go with the Rebels. It's a group lock. Now, here's the question. And Brett's not here to give me the definite answer, so I have to rely on you. And he's really the one I want the answer from because it impacts him more than it impacts you. We haven't been great on group locks. So would he prefer me?
Wait, what was our record for group locks? It's 7-4 or something like that?
Is that right? Is that in bowl season?
I think it is.
Okay. I don't know
I
what
could
we are in
be
bowl season.
so wrong. It could.
I haven't kept up, and I can't remember the last time
because we
said
haven't.
it.
Well, because we haven't played. We haven't made playoff picks yet for the NFL, so it would have to be bowl season.
Well, but
picks.
I didn't know if you were saying that was for. I guess that wouldn't be that too limited for the complete season. We would have had a lot more group blocks.
Yeah.
No, well, that's better. I mean, historically, group blocks have not been kind on this show.
Right.
So, I wonder if he would prefer somebody goes against the group block. But that still doesn't mean that it would go with Ole Miss.
I don't know. I think
somebody would win.
If I remember correctly of where the record stands, is that we're above 500 on it.
Well, then if that's the case, if we're 7-4,
well, now you're kind of pinning all this pick on me.
No. But if we're 7-4, like you say we are, so maybe I am.
Yes, you 100% are with that final statement there.
Group lock. How about that?
All right.
How about the Rebels?
We'll see if we can add
plus
to
3.5, which means tonight, especially with 3, I don't know, but I might. Who knows what I'm actually going to bet? But I'll go with Ole Miss for our picks. For the concern of our picks, I will go with the Ole Miss Rebels, and I hope that it is. I hope that we're all right, whether it means Miami wins or it means Ole Miss wins. I want this to be a really, really, really great game. I want it to be back and forth. I want it to come down to the last play if possible. You know, you made mention when we were talking about the FCS championship game earlier this week of if we got a game anywhere near what that game was for these semifinal games, we were going to get a thriller. And so I hope it's like that. I hope we take all of that energy from the FCS championship game into tonight's semifinal game for Ole Miss and Miami, and that leads to a great game. So I'll take Ole Miss plus 3.5. I think this has the it has all the writing on the wall to be a thriller of a game, to be that back and forth, kind of come down to the wire type of game. So group lock, we'll all go with the Ole Miss Rebels, which
it's not my fault.
We'll put the blame on you if they don't cover. We'll put the complete blame on you. But we'll have that game for you here in just a little bit, a little more than 30 minutes. We will kick off the pregame show between Miami and Ole Miss. I should remind you, while we're talking about what's coming up on Sports 56, we've got a weekend full of stuff. We'll talk about it again tomorrow, but a lot of really good stuff coming up. Landon mentioned the playoffs getting started in the NFL. I mentioned it tonight. We'll have Ole Miss and Miami. Saturday, Ole Miss and Missouri basketball at 4:30 pregame for that 5 o'clock tip. We'll have that complete game, which means we will not have that first NFL game on Saturday. We will have Packers at Bears, the 8 p.m. game. We will join that game, or 7 p.m. game. We'll join it around 8 in progress. Then Sunday we'll have a complete triple header. Bills, Jaguars at noon, 49ers, Eagles at 3, and then Chargers, Patriots at 6:30. And then on Monday, I know we'll talk a couple times before that Monday night game, but we'll have Texas and Steelers for you, 7 o'clock. Monday night. So we'll have you covered. Semifinal action and NFL playoffs. We've got it right here on Sports 56. But before we get to a break, let me remind you, perfect time, head down to Olive Branch, check out Frontier Western Store. Family owned and operated since 1967, Frontier Western is your one-stop shop for the biggest brands in Western wear. They're the one-stop shop for Carhartt in the Mid-South, but they've also got you covered with plenty of other brands when it comes to shirts, shorts, jeans, outerwear. Whatever you're looking for, they've got it in stock. But if you need a new pair of jeans, Frontier Western is the place you need to get to. They've got a complete wall just stacked full of different types of jeans, different brands of jeans. They've got all the biggest brands from Ariat all the way down to Wrangler. And you'll love how easy it is to find that perfect size and that perfect style for you. And while you're down there, check out Frontier's world-famous boot showroom. Whether it's work boots or dress boots, Frontier has you covered for the entire family with plenty of proven in-stock classics like Ariat, Dan Post, and Durango. And that really is just to name a few. Landon, I was down at Frontier Western about a week ago. I got a new pair of boots from that beautiful boot showroom.
I saw them.
Whew. And this is great. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It was overwhelming at times because of all the different types of
There's a lot in there.
They had. I mean, whatever kind of boot you need or you're looking for it, they've got it. They've got different styles or different kinds of the same style, different brands of the same style. So you really can find the perfect boot.
You can find whatever
at
you
Frontier.
want.
I mean, you really can. It is unbelievable.
That's where I got my boots.
It's unbelievable the amount of boots they have. Men's, women's, kids. They've got it all. So if you're in the market for some boots, no other place to go to other than Frontier Western Store. And to make things even better, their pricing is lower than online and chain stores, so you know you'll be getting the best deals. Head down 5880 Goodman Road in Olive Branch. Check out the entire selection. Open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., and Sundays, 1 p.m. to 6 p.m. for Frontier Western Store. Well, let's get to another break, wrap up this first hour, and when we return, we're talking college football. Pat Smith from Jocks down in Birmingham. He joins us next.
Can't tell you the number of times I've heard people tell me that they wanted to wait until spring to put their home on the market. This is Sheldon Rosengarten at Marks Bensdorf Realtors, and think about it. In March, April, when the azaleas bloom, so do the real estate signs. More competition. We've been in an unusual market in the last year, and to get an edge on other homes on the market, make sure and talk to 2 to 3 real estate brokers and make sure that I am one of them. I've developed a highly successful strategic marketing program that can mean the difference in what you make and when. From the preparation before you go on the market to the presentation and keeping you informed every step of the way, it's rare that we cannot provide results. That's why people often say, when you want the job done, call Sheldon at 483-0546 or memphisrelocate.com. Write it down or call me now, memphisrelocate.com or 483-0546.
Tito's Handmade Vodka is America's favorite vodka for a reason. From the first legal distillery in Texas, Tito's is 6 times distilled till it's just right and naturally gluten-free, making it a high-quality spirit that mixes with just about everything. From the smoothest martinis to the best Bloody Marys, beyond the bottle, Tito's has gained a reputation for giving back, teaming up with nonprofits around the world to serve its communities and do good for dogs. Make your next cocktail with Tito's and learn more at Tito'sVodka.com. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly.
In just a few short years, Sunrise has become synonymous with breakfast in Memphis. Sure, Sunrise on Jefferson and Sunrise East on Poplar both serve great lunches, but when Memphians talk about a truly special place for breakfast, Sunrise is always first in the conversation. It's amazing to think that just a few years ago, Sunrise wasn't even an option for breakfast in Memphis, and now it's simply the only answer to the question, who serves the best breakfast in town? Sure, they've won a lot of awards, but the best thing they've won is the fact that when you think of breakfast, you think of Sunrise.
Since 1948, in the alley, the Rendezvous. I'm with John Burgos. John, what's going on in the Rendezvous?
Brett, after 76 years, we've decided to expand our product line. Anyone who's tasted our ribs is familiar with our vinegar based. It's now available in a 32-ounce jar. It's so good to baste or marinate all meats. I even put a little bit on turnip greens. Something we've been using at the restaurant or at our house has been the Greek seasoning. My father was a cook, but my mother was a chef, and she was the one that put Greek seasoning on everything from a Mediterranean diet or a steak. My mom used it on soup, salad, veggies, fish, any meats. It's a great seasoning and a flavor enhancer. My brother Nick figured out salt and pepper was more than just McCormick's and Morton's. He's come up with a perfect blend we use to coat our shoulders and our brisket, and he used to make it for his friends as Christmas gifts, and they loved it. All these products are available at the Rendezvous or online for shipping as gifts and in many grocery stores. And if they're not in your favorite grocery store, ask your grocer to stock it.
A beloved family affair and still going strong since 1948, the Rendezvous.
This traffic report is brought to you by Millington Weight Loss. For more information, call 901-436-0272.
Sports 56 traffic.
Good afternoon, Tina. It's already out here working with a couple of disabled vehicles. Right now, it's moving as we check it out live on 240 East from Millcrest out to 385 as you get on the Billings Parkway. It won't be long before that starts to get a little bit heavier, pushing on out towards the Collierville area. Building already over here at I-40 at White Station. Hey, Weimer's Jewelry wants you to know they are your full-service, family-owned jewelry store. Stop by and see them this bridal season that's coming up at 7525 Highway 64. I'm Commander Chuck with your on-time traffic.
We are Sports 56, WHBQ Memphis, and W253DF Memphis with John Harden, weekdays from 11 to 1. Now back to Sports Time on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. This hour brought to you by Landers Ford in Collierville. Here once again are Brett Norsworthy and Bryant Dacus.
In dreams, right someday, it seems when she sleeps.
Welcome back in Sports Time. Brian Landon with you as we start our second hour on this Thursday afternoon. We got to talk some college football, and we do it on Thursdays, usually a little earlier, but nice enough to move around with us. Pat Smith from Jocks down in Birmingham. He joins us now. Pat, thanks so much for joining us. Obviously, a lot going on right now. Tonight, the semifinals get started with Ole Miss and Miami. Tomorrow night, we'll have the other game with Indiana and Oregon. But let's talk about these four teams and how they got here in the quarterfinals. Which one of these four teams still standing have you been the most impressed with throughout the playoffs?
Always great to be on a Memphis, guys. Obviously what Ole Miss has been able to do because of all the upheaval, when you look at the chaos that was going on created by Lane Kiffin, you got to tip your cap to Pete Golden, Kevin Carter, and everyone at the organization and the University of Mississippi for the way that they've handled things on the field. They've been very impressive. Obviously, what I saw Indiana do to the University of Alabama on New Year's Day, that was as impressive. It reminded me a lot of what Nick Saban teams used to do to other teams, and all of a sudden that was being done to Alabama. So for me, the two teams that I predict are going to be in the national championship game, Indiana and Ole Miss, both have equally impressed me by the way they've looked.
Wow, so you have Indiana and Ole Miss in your national championship. That would be a remarkable national championship with just the storylines surrounding both of those teams. But let's talk about tonight's game, Miami and Ole Miss. A lot of people, and Landon and I have talked about it, Brett and I have talked about it as well, of kind of the consensus of what this game is. Ole Miss, with how great their offense has looked, against Miami and how great their defense looks. How do you think tonight's game plays out?
Well, one thing is for sure, I think if Ole Miss can absolutely hold up on the offensive line, because you saw what kind of chaos could happen with what Miami delivered against Ohio State and what they did to kind of shut down Marcel Reed for Texas A&M in round one of the tournament. So for me, I was about to say Alabama. It's about Ole Miss's offensive line being able to stop what Miami can do on the edge. I think one thing is for sure, I think that they're going to line up and they're going to try to say, okay, Ole Miss, we're going to try to make you run the football and see if they can stop the Rebels. And it's going to be obviously important for Trinidad Chambliss to continue his hot hand at the quarterback position. So for me, it's in the trenches, because when you get to this time of the year, especially when you get to the playoffs, that is what's going to win most of these games. And that's why you're not seeing a lot of high-scoring games. Granted, you had Indiana score 38 points against Alabama, but the game was won in the trenches, and I think that will be the key tonight between Ole Miss and Miami.
Yeah, you talk about Trinidad Chambliss, how good he was in that game against Georgia. It was almost unfortunate. I mean, because on the other side, Gunnar Stockton was awesome as well. He made some big plays down the stretch in that game, and it was a little unfortunate for him that after that game, everyone's talking about Trinidad Chambliss for obvious reasons. He was incredible in that game. But you mentioned with if Miami tries to force Ole Miss to run the ball, I mean, Quan Lacey has shown all year he can get the job done. He has been an electric back, and that's going to be interesting to see what he can do against this Miami defense.
Yeah, there's no question. I agree exactly what you just said. Also, the point of Carson Beck. He played in some big games for the University of Georgia. Ohio State, they tried to put a lot of pressure on him when they played him in the Cotton Bowl. I think he was 7 of 10 when he was pressured by the Ohio State defense. So, he really came up big. Carson Beck has proved that, he doesn't need to go out and throw for 300-plus yards, because obviously Miami's got a very healthy running game. They want to try to get that established. So, for me, if Ole Miss's defense can come out early, kind of set the tone, get a couple 3-and-outs on Carson Beck, and really put that pressure on him, I think that could go a long way for Ole Miss to be able to get this game won.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Carson Beck, what he's done, Brett and I have talked about it. If Carson Beck doesn't throw an interception, Miami is in a good spot. You go back and you look at the last 5 games, only 1 interception, and the success they've had over that 5-game span, including these last couple of games in the playoffs. So I'm really excited about tonight's game and what could possibly happen. Tomorrow night's game, obviously not getting as much talk today because of tonight's game, but tomorrow night's game, Indiana and Oregon. I know you watched a lot of that Indiana-Alabama game in the Rose Bowl. That got a little ugly. What did you make of what you saw from Indiana in that game? The way I said it right after that game was over, I was not surprised that Indiana won the game. I was surprised, though, how they won the game and just how dominant they were in the Rose Bowl. What did you make of that win, and what do you make of this matchup for Indiana against Oregon?
Like I said before, this Indiana team reminds me of what the joyless murder ball that was Nick Saban at Alabama, because what happened in that game was basically what Alabama used to do to their opponent. They would win up front, and they absolutely would just make teams quit. And it's one thing that you have not seen from an Alabama football team probably since the early 2000s, where you got to the late third quarter, it just looked like Alabama wanted to fast forward the clock and get out of there. Like nobody wanted to be a part of that game. Indiana is methodical. The way that they go about their business is extremely impressive. I think Oregon is going to have to play a near perfect football game tomorrow night for them to get the win. I understand that they played a really tough game at Autzen Stadium. It's a lot different considering the fact that you're going to have Indiana folks going from Bloomington or Indianapolis over to Atlanta. Meanwhile, you've got Oregon for the second week in a row in the CFP. They're having to travel to the other side of the planet across 3 different time zones to play a football game. They're going to have to be really above their A game, in my opinion, to beat Indiana. Just thoroughly impressed. The whole organization of the way Indiana systematically took apart Alabama. And one thing is for sure, they know Oregon. Oregon knows them. I think it's going to be a competitive game. It's not going to be like an Alabama type of blowout that Indiana have. But I've just been thoroughly impressed with every big game that Indiana was supposed to play this year. And granted, it wasn't an SEC schedule, but the games that they had to get up for, if they had their back against the wall, they performed. And that has been very impressive with Curt Cignetti.
So I know we'll talk again before the national championship game. If Indiana wins tomorrow night, they're in the national championship game, and they win the national championship, what will we be saying about Curt Cignetti and kind of his legacy already just after a couple of years where we really just kind of learned who he was?
It's amazing. I think all of us learned how to Google him. That was the first thing that we learned to do. That's what he told us to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, he told us to do it. So we did it, and then we started watching his football teams. Just thoroughly impressed with what he's been able to do. He took the blueprint that he learned when he was an assistant coach in Tuscaloosa under Nick Saban. He went and applied that to James Madison. You saw the success he had there. Yeah. And a lot of people have scratched their heads, but let's just be honest. If the transfer portal in NIL had not happened, he would not have had the success that he has had in Bloomington, Indiana, because keep in mind, Indiana has never recruited one single 5-star, ever. Everything has been done through the transfer portal, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's the world we live in now. So he has been able to build that roster and do the things that he's done based on that transfer portal. So if you're looking down the road and think about the legacy of Curt Cignetti, it's the fact that he's been able to take this new blueprint in college football, similar to what Lane Kiffin was doing at Ole Miss before he tucked tail to run to Baton Rouge. That has been the success, and I think that's the big storyline with these coaches moving forward, is you better have a good general manager, you better know how to evaluate talent, and you better have a little bit of money to be able to get these kids on campus.
Yeah, Pat, talking more about this Indiana and Oregon game that we're going to have tomorrow, I think one of the biggest things that we saw in Indiana, or that we saw in Oregon taking down Texas Tech, is the incredible defensive battle that we had, especially the bounce back Oregon had from allowing 500 yards against JMU, and they got some big guys making some big turnovers in that game. The biggest difference, though, is that when Alabama opened that game against Indiana, they got a pair of sacks on Fernando Mendoza, but they just failed to keep up the pressure and getting into his face. So Fernando kind of did whatever he wanted to do. What do we need to expect from Oregon to kind of do what Alabama could not in order to kind of disrupt this high-powered Indiana offense?
Well, one thing's for sure, and they've already played them, so that's good because they do have tape and they have a game plan that they tried to execute at Autzen Stadium earlier this year. The thing that Alabama could not do against Indiana was, Alabama was never very strong on the defensive front. Any type of pressure that Alabama had to provide all season long had to come through blitz packages. And, of course, when you have the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback back there, if you bring a blitz, your quarterbacks in your secondary, they better be on their A game that day or he's going to pick you apart. So it was kind of pick your poison. It was whether, okay, you're going to die by 1,000 cuts because they're going to run the football and they're going to continue to smash you up front, or if you're going to risk it and you're going to bring pressure, then all of a sudden you've got one of the most prolific passers in the game today that can pick you apart with the pass game down the field. So for Alabama, they just lost in the trenches. And so Oregon is going to have to put forth the same type of effort they had against Texas Tech, in my opinion, because if you had told me that Texas Tech would have been shut out against Oregon, I would have really, really made you take a test to make sure you were not inebriated. I mean, because I just saw that Texas Tech team all year long. When you average 42.5 points per game, and then you go in that game and you get shut out by an Oregon team that was not listed as one of the top defenses in the country, you kind of have to wonder what's going on there. So Oregon better bring it, and they better win in the trenches tomorrow night. That's where it needs to start. I think Dante Moore is a good quarterback for Oregon. So we'll see what happens there. But they need to set the tone early, just like I said with Ole Miss and Miami tonight. Get some quick 3-and-outs and see what the offense can do from there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Switching gears a little bit, we're talking with Pat Smith from Jocks down in Birmingham. Obviously, with all this going on, transfer portal is open. The big story around the transfer portal is this story out in Washington with Damon Williams Jr. and him entering the portal. A couple minutes later, reports coming out that he signed a contract with Washington to return. What happens there? Washington saying they'll take all legal actions they can to make sure that contract is enforced. What do you make of this? I mean, literally, I think it was, Landon, was it the day this story came out or the day before? And we were talking with Brent Beard and kind of talking about how all of these new professional terms are coming out.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was Tuesday. All these professional terms are starting to come out when it comes to college athletics. And then you see breach of contract and legal avenues to ensure that the contract is enforced. What do you make of this story? I feel like we're going to see more and more of this in the future, but what do you make of what's coming out of Seattle, Washington?
Well, it's troublesome because, every time you think that the sport can't get any lower, it does, because you have a situation where there is no organization, the CSC or the NCAA. Nobody can stop this from happening. This is going to be the same situation that you had at Wisconsin, where the player's just going to simply say, okay, you don't want to put me in the transfer portal? No problem. I'm leaving school.
Yep.
Like, you can't do nothing to me. I'm going to leave school. I'm going to go to South Florida, because the rumor is it's either he's going to go to Miami or potentially Lane Kiffin would like to bring him into Baton Rouge because he was originally recruited by Lane Kiffin to Ole Miss. So those are the two schools that I keep hearing that they're the most interested in. His attorney, who dropped him today, because that's Jed Fish's attorney, so there's a little bit of conflict of interest there. And so he picked up the attorney who was the attorney of the Wisconsin player who left for Miami and who is being sued by Wisconsin. So you see the playing field kind of being exposed here in regards to who the players are. I don't think there's anything you can do to stop them. It's sad that an individual, if they sign a contract, whether it's you guys at your place of business or me in Birmingham, if I sign a contract, you better believe that I'm going to have to adhere to that. That's called being an adult and being responsible. So for someone to sign a contract on January the 2nd and then 3 or 4 days later decide that you're just going to completely ignore it, what if Washington decided not to pay him if he would have stayed there? I mean, do you think he would have had recourse to go after them because he wasn't getting paid? So it's not a two-way street here, and that's the problem. I have no issue with players making money in the transfer portal, have no problem with NIL. I do have an issue when these schools put pen to paper and they give them a deal and they're not living up to their end of the bargain. I got a serious problem with that.
No, definitely.
Yeah, Pat, just real quick, I have a question about Pete Golding that I don't think a lot of people have really brought into attention right now. But if Pete wins tonight, that means that his start as a head coach for the Ole Miss Rebels would be a win against Tulane, a win over Georgia, and then a win over Miami. Could this perhaps be one of the greatest starts of a head coaching tenure we've ever seen?
No question. There's no question. And, when you look at the Wikipedia page and you see that and you go, okay, then he did it against top 25 opponents, which that's impressive. College football playoff, even more impressive. Oh, and by the way, the circus that is Lane Kiffin also added to the drama. And for him to be able to navigate that and to do what he has done, that is even going to be a more impressive facet of what he is able to do. But no question in my mind, and again, I covered Pete when he was in Tuscaloosa as the defensive coordinator at Alabama. Always impressed with him, always great with us in the media. He continues to do that as the head coach of Ole Miss. But very happy for Pete and what he's been able to accomplish, and hopefully tonight they can get one step closer to the national championship.
Yeah, it's definitely a fun story. Pat, as always, thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy these games. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you again next Thursday.
That sounds good, guys. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Pat.
Pat Smith joining us from Jocks down in Birmingham. He joins us every Thursday, usually at 3:30, but he was nice enough to switch to 4 o'clock. To talk all things college football. Well, it is Thursdays, and usually we talk Tigers with Greg Gaston. We'll be back with Greg next Thursday. Obviously, last couple weeks, not able to get with him today, not able to get with him. But he'll be back with us next Thursday. But I do want to remind you that We Talk Tigers is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Van Center Memphis. They have serious vans for serious work. At 4430 American Way, they're the Mid-South source for cargo, passenger, crew vans, and custom chassis. Need one or a full fleet, new or used? Well, they've got it with fleet solutions and custom upfits. Certified techs keep you moving with fast maintenance, repairs, and a large parts inventory. Mercedes-Benz Van Center is your Sprinter van headquarters. Give them a call, 901-237-9302 or sprintervans.com. Mercedes-Benz Van Center Memphis, part of the Tag Truck Center family, driven to keep you on the road. A reminder, we're about to get out of here. Ole Miss, Miami. We'll have the pregame show starting at 4:30, and then we'll go complete until the end of the postgame show. Let's go ahead and get to Mo's Crunch Time.
This is pretty cool, and we're just getting started.
Spanning the globe.
Go crazy, folks! Go crazy!
This game has always been called the world's greatest cocktail party. Do you know what is going to happen here tonight?
This is for all the biggest Crunch Time.
You are looking live. In your life have you seen anything like that?
Crunch time between the hedges.
The ball game is over, and Memphis has its first win in 16 tries. Its first win ever against its fierce in-state rival Tennessee.
Goodbye! It's obviously Crunch time. Hammer, nail, coffin, this baby is over.
Crunch Time is brought to you by Moe's Southwest Grill. Need a crunchy bite to eat? Head to Moe's for nachos, crunch wraps, tacos, salads, and more. Moe's.com is your go-to for all your taco crunch time emergencies. Well, Landon, what I learned today, some coaching news that involve NFL people, colleges, and high schools. How about that?
That's all the basis.
Very rarely do you get all of that in one, but we're getting that today. 2 coaching stories. Oklahoma, the Sooners have hired former Cowboys tight end Jason Witten.
Jason Garrett.
They were there together. A lot of Jason Witten, one of my favorite Cowboys of all time, even though I can't get his name right. But Jason Witten is going. It's hard when Jason Witten now getting into coaching. Jason Garrett's trying to get back into coaching. I mean, a lot of Jasons, a lot of Cowboys, a lot
more
of
Jasons
coaching
than you would think.
Yeah, that's right. But Jason Witten has agreed to become the tight ends coach at Oklahoma. The other story, Trent Dilfer, the former NFL quarterback, the former UAB head coach, he's going back to Nashville to be the head coach at Lipscomb Academy, where he was previously the head coach before he took over at UAB. I remember, and I don't remember exactly, but there was something about maybe when he first got the job at UAB and was playing Memphis, he said something about being in Memphis with Lipscomb Academy and having bad barbecue or something like that. So maybe he'll be back and have better barbecue. I don't know.
I hope so. Well, actually, I learned a couple of things today. One of them was actually your not top story, and Marcus Stokes being the guy to, I guess, verbally commit, since Charles Huff mentioned that he had not signed any documents
nothing official yet signed, but it looks like nothing crazy is going to happen. It looks like everything's going to work out there.
Well, I mean, to flip from West Florida to all now come over here. I know he was in talks to, he visited Syracuse before he came to us, too. So definitely a high sought-after guy, and I was watching a Grind City Media podcast and how they were talking about how this guy was highly rated, 4-star, recruited by all the big schools. Of course, made a small little mistake there, but honestly, that doesn't impact his gameplay, and I think we've got a really good guy there. But something else that I learned today is that 26 years ago today was the Music City Miracle that sent the Titans to the Super Bowl, the lateral from Frank Wycheck to Kevin Dyson to defeat the Buffalo Bills, and then, that Super Bowl occurred. We don't talk about that, but exciting, the most exciting play, I think, in the history of Tennessee Titans until, maybe however long it's going to be until we get back on track. But very exciting news for 26 years ago today that the most exciting play in Tennessee Titans history occurred.
Yeah, no, definitely a great play in the history of the NFL. What I could have done without also involves the NFL, but a really, really troubling situation. Last night, the Kansas City Chiefs came out and said they're in communication with the National Football League after a woman posted pictures and a paragraph on Instagram talking about how she is the mother of Rashee Rice's 2 children. I don't know if they're still dating, but we're in a relationship, and she alleges with photo evidence that Rashee Rice physically abused her in an 8-year span. Some of those pictures just very graphic, always very troubling when you see these things. Obviously, Rashee Rice is his name's been in the news for negative things in the past. This just adds on to it, and don't know what comes out of this. If any of this is true, if any part of him beating on his ex-girlfriend, mother of his children, then there should be action taking place, and he should not be in the league. So we'll definitely be interested to see where the Chiefs, where the NFL go from here.
Yeah, absolutely. There's definitely no room for any of that kind of behavior in that field of play, no matter how famous you are. What I could have done without today is something I've been very vocal about when it comes to this head coach search for the Tennessee Titans. It appears, and unreasonably so, that offensive coordinator Matt Nagy is going to be the guy. It seems like everything's pointing in that direction. I think the case in point of getting all of these extra interviews with all of these coordinators and ex-head coaches is kind of the Titans' way of maybe saying, "Hey, look at these guys. Maybe Matt Nagy doesn't look so bad." But no, you're not fooling a majority of this Titans fan base in the fact that Matt Nagy, since he's been with the Chiefs, their offense has been declining, and that's with Patrick Mahomes, that's with Travis Kelce, and even before they got injured, this team was definitely on the decline. So I really hope that Mike Borgonzi goes and does the right thing, that he actually goes through and interviews and finds the best candidate to help this young talent on this team, because like Mike Borgonzi said in an interview today for the Tennessee Titans, he was talking about how you have a lot of young talent, the way that the draft is going, how they have $120 million worth of salary and cap space going into free agency and stuff like that. All of those things allows you to stack up your team, but if you don't have a leader at the helm of that charge, then what are you going to do? You just have a team with a bunch of talent, no real direction to go to. So I really like what he did with the draft last year, but I hope and I pray that he continues to make good decisions for the Titans organization, that he doesn't just rest and say, "Oh, this is a Chiefs guy. I used to come from the Chiefs," and we'll just rest there. So I hope he makes the right decision. Right now, I have no reason to go against Borgonzi until the hiring of our new head coach.
Group lock on the Fiesta Bowl we're beaming to tonight?
I think so.
All right.
There's no other place to go. If we were beaming into the future, I'd go to Indiana and Oregon.
Yeah, but for tonight, I think it's got to be it's got to be that game. But a lot to watch tonight, in addition to that big time game tonight between Ole Miss and Miami, which you can hear right here on Sports 56. We'll have the pregame show in just a couple minutes at 4:30. But a handful of NBA games, a lot of basketball games, even though not a ton of SEC, not a ton of top 25 flavor in there, but a good amount, about 57 college games tonight, a handful of NBA games as well. But that's all the time we have. Enjoy the rest of your night. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.